picture?
What do you mean?
She's going to make quite a counselor one day.
She said, we met the mayor. That's the way she said it.
Who likes flew instead of drove?
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome here, everyone. Council, this weekend, I was able to give greetings at the MHV for their Steinbach Winter Carnival. And there was a part of the program where it's called Stories of Gratitude. And they had some representatives from SEMFA, the Steinbach, or the Southeast Manitoba Filipino Association. And they also had there was a Ukrainian lady, and they shared their stories of immigration. And as I was listening to the stories, I found they were very difficult parts in these stories. And it made me think that someone really has to want to come to Canada badly in order to start the process of immigration. It got me thinking of, at one time we were like, yes, I'm fifth generation in Canada, but somewhere someone had to immigrate in order for me to be a Canadian. So I started looking up my family history, and thankfully, my dad's Aunt Sarah, she's been a historian for the family, and she put it all together. So I just want to talk about some of the highlights of my family coming to Canada. So our family's immigration story starts in the south of Russia, in Colony Bertal, in April 30th, 1841. A young boy, a baby, Jacob Funk, was born. And soon after that, his future wife, Agatha Thiessen, was born on April 11th, 1843, also in Colony Bertal. They were married in December 1st in 1863, and they lived in a village of Schoenfeld, which consisted of about 25 families. And in 1874, they decided to move to Manitoba. 50 families left the Berthal colony and crossed the Atlantic by ship. It was a difficult journey. Upon their arrival in Toronto, this group was informed that grasshoppers had consumed all the crops in Manitoba, and it would be advisable for them to remain with the Mennonite families in Ontario for the winter. It appears, according to the dates, that would be my great-grandfather, Abram T. Funk, was born in Ontario. So he would have been the first Funk Canadian on record. There was no mention made to how long they stayed in Ontario, but when this group left Ontario, they boarded a ship on Lake Huron from where there was still lots of ice. When they got to Lake Superior, the ice got so thick the ship could not get through. They were about 15 to 20 miles from Duluth. The ice was about 15 feet thick, and the ship was stuck and could not move for 14 days. They only had food for a few days, and when hunger set in, they knew they had to do something. So 19 men set off on foot to get to the shore for help. By 11 o'clock that night, these men got to Duluth. They made a big fire to signal the people on the ship that they were safely to shore and that help was on the way. Food was brought in, and help arrived to get the ship to Duluth. From Duluth, they boarded the Northern Pacific Railroad at Moorhead, Minnesota. From Moorhead, they took steamship along the Red River to the Rat River, which is west of Niverville, Manitoba. This is where all the baggage was unloaded. From here, everyone was on their own and started to set up villages. As a young boy, I fished at that corner many times. It's right where the Red and the Rat River meet. And my dad took me fishing there many times, and I saw the monument, the Mennonite monument, but I had no idea that my great-great-grandpa and my grandpa, who was most likely 1 or 2 years old at the time, landed there, and that's where their journey in Manitoba started. Jacob, he moved his family to a place just west of Grunthal, and Abram T. Funk, which was my great-grandpa, grew up in Grunthal. He grew up with faith in God. He grew up with hard work. And as I said, this was more highlights. There's more story of how they settled and the businesses they did. But one thing as I read the story of the Funks, I realized there's a lot of things that have been ingrained in me. A lot of their traits are living through me today. You know, there's a lot of things that are the same. And one of the things is they were raised in faith and they were taught hard work. And I'm so thankful for their commitment to come from Russia, their commitment to keep moving. And even though the hardships they encountered on their journey to get to Manitoba, it didn't stop them. They had a desire and a will and they wanted to get to Manitoba, and they kept going through the tough times. And their faith sustained them, their faith in God. And the more I read and realized where I come from and why I am the way I am today, I realized that through all that and all their difficulties, God did bless them. And I never, ever want to forget the rich heritage that they left behind. And as I saw this in the stories that were told by the Ukrainian settler, or the Ukrainian people that have come over, and the Filipinos, I realized that they too are bringing across a rich heritage, and they're bringing that to us, and I'm just excited that we can embrace that, and that we can all be Canadians together. Thank you. Council, we have the agenda in front of us, looking for a motion to adopt. Councillor Swagstra, second by Councillor Siemens. Call for the question. All's in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Council, we have the minutes in front of from February 7th, 2023, the regular council meeting in front of us, looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Call for the question. All's in favor? That is carried. Are there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, seeing none. At this moment, I'd be looking for a motion to excuse Councillor Bill Hebert. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Call for the question. All's in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, there's no public hearing, no delegations. We'll move to reports and recommendations of City Manager. This is the Community Safety Officer Agreement. Mr. Workney, could you please introduce this file?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will defer this one to City's Corporate Services Manager, Adam Thiessen.
Thank you. Yes, City Council considered the implementation of a Community Safety Officer program for the purposes of enforcing weight restrictions at the February 14 SPC meeting. And at that meeting, Council requested that City Administration proceed with bringing an agreement forward for its consideration at a future meeting of Council, being today. A copy of the standard CSO agreement is in the package here, and a draft resolution to accept it is on page 42 of the package. The key issues really behind this initiative are that city enforcement process for vehicle weight restrictions under Steinbach Traffic Bylaw 2164 is subject to some limitations around pulling over moving vehicles presently, and that by entering into this agreement with the province and the RCMP, we will now have the authority to better enforce weight restrictions on Steinbach roads.
Thank you, Mr. Thiessen. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve.
second by Councillor Siemens. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a reflection of the discussion that we had last week at our SPC meeting. And as was explained, the intent here is for the city to enter into an agreement with the province and the RCMP that will give the city, our community safety officer, our bylaw officer, the authority and the ability to stop and weigh heavy vehicles. And this is for the purpose of enforcing our road weight restrictions. We know that our streets need to be maintained, and obviously we need to make sure that when there are weight limits on our streets, that those are being honored. And so by adding this extra tool, this makes it easier for us to enforce these requirements that we have in place. And so I think it makes sense for us to proceed and have this go ahead.
Anything further, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think I agree with this. It has been many years that we haven't been able to enforce our road restrictions on our gravel roads. Our provincial highways is done by Manitoba Transportation, I believe, but our provincial roads, while we do put restrictions on, we leave that up to the owners and operators to mandate themselves. We haven't had teeth in a bylaw to actually enforce it in the past in a proper way. We can enforce it at this point, we can enforce it when they're stopped, but we can't enforce it when they're moving. Now we'll give us opportunity we can actually stop the vehicle and we can enforce our bylaws if they're overweight. And that will save our gravel roads during the restriction period that we put out each year. So I'm totally in favor of this.
Anything further of council? Yes, Councillor Hebert.
I apologize that I missed the SPC meeting last week and the discussion on this. I would have liked to have been there. But I'm looking at some of the things here. I found it very interesting. I've gone through the agreement twice now. The powers and the training, the safety and the liabilities to the city. The question I have for administration, I'm just wondering if the traffic constable that we hired or the community constable, if either one of those will also be enforcing the weight restrictions?
No, in Manitoba, the RCMP does not do weight restrictions at all. They leave it to the DOT branch. It's the other provincial body that really focuses on just the weight restriction side.
Even though we solely hired a constable to do traffic within the city limits?
Well, I mean, when we talked to them about it, it wasn't something they were considering.
Okay, find that interesting. That's appreciate it. Thank you. I just looked at some of the stuff, the equipment that we're going to be paying for, and what is the handcuffs, the baton, the aerial spray, and if training is given for that. I noticed there's no bulletproof vest. I found that interesting for safety reasons, but there's no bulletproof vest to be issued to the community constable. Liabilities, I noticed the city has to carry no less than $5 million worth of insurance on this constable per occurrence. So that's something that we should be looking at. And like I said, I'm in favor of this. Don't get me there. It's just some of the things I want to point out. And another question I have, and I guess another question of administration, is the safety officer won't just be doing the enforcement of the weight restrictions, but I notice also implementing crime prevention strategies initiative, connecting social services providers with persons, or maintaining a visible presence within the community. That's all the community officer's role with peace officer status. Are we entertaining that as well?
No, that is, the CSO role can be as broad as that. However, it is limited to the agreement in place between the municipality, province, and RCMP. And the clearest place to really get a reflection of that is in Schedule B, starting on page 21. And there's two real parts of pieces of legislation or law that give authority. The ones that we're saying yes to are, in Schedule C. On page 25, you can see under the Highway Traffic Act right at the top there, stopping vehicles, and then requiring production of documentation. But the rest we're saying no to, as we have RCMP to do the rest.
I noticed even there when stopping a vehicle and the person doesn't have a driver's license or registration, the community officer will not be issuing a ticket. We'll have to call the RCMP or go by mail.
Yeah, they would have to call the RCMP since we don't have a municipal Steinbach bylaw to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
But he will have mobile service where he can, like he can contact them by radio, or CMP?
Yes, that's correct, and DOT as well.
DOT.
Either or.
But just for clarification, primarily, we're using this agreement for the overweight vehicles
Yeah, solely, actually.
on municipal roads.
Yep. That's 100% all that we're using it for.
Okay, just so we can be protecting our roads and that we have our investment in.
Yeah, the rest of the Steinbach municipal bylaws we have are uneven some of this, but we have all the authority we need under the Municipal Act, so.
And we have the RCMP to enforce the other traffic act and other criminal activities.
Yes.
Good, just for clarification, thank you. Anything further, council? Anything in closing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to be clear, without this agreement, we have limited ability to enforce weight restrictions. With this agreement, we can enforce it. That's what we're voting on. Very simple.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think this is a step in the right direction, council. I think this is something we've been looking forward for many years, and this finally gives us the ability to stop vehicles that are overweight on our municipal roads. DOT has had that authority for decades and years, but we are just getting it now, and this will definitely help us we'll be able to find those that are overweight, and it'll be able to put that money back into protecting our roads. Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we'll move down to 9A, administration, accounts payable. At the back of the book, we've all had a chance to review, looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Council, we have the signing authority resolution. It's on page 43. Council, this is a little bit of housekeeping. This is something we do every year, but the main reason for this is as our city clerk, Deb Rempel, is retiring, we will be replacing her with her replacement city clerk, Amanda Dubois. And so we're just looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Swagstra. Any comments?
No, as you said, it's just a bit of housekeeping as we transition Amanda into Deb's role.
Anything further? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, council, we have 9C. This is the grant summary report. Looking for a motion to adopt this report. It's on page 44. All the grants are listed. There is one grant that was missed. It will come out of 2023. That is for Headway. That was missed, but it will be given today, but come out of 23's budget. Okay. How would you like to proceed? We're looking for a motion to adopt.
A motion. Motion to approve.
Okay, Councillor Seaman, second by Councillor Hebert. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our annual grant expense. It's at $1.2 million. A little bit of explanation on. Actually, it's closer to 1.6, including the library. The library, the $336,000 that we grant them comes from our tax dollars, but roughly 60%, I believe, is clawed back through a rental agreement we have with them that we charge for the building use. The Chamber of Commerce grant of $208,000, $65,000 of that would be for the EDO, the Economic Development Officer, that agreement that we have with him. The rest of those dollars are dollars that have passed through city hands as the the 0.5% city or the business tax that we agreed, I believe it was 12 years ago that we agreed to pass along to the chamber. The Steinbach Arts Council there as well, we have about a 45%, roughly 45% of that is clawed back for our rent on the building. The Bethesda Foundation has been a grant that we agreed to when with the seniors' health situation we had with Rest Haven and so on, and we have agreed to continue that. The Manitoba Hall of Fame Museum, the $500 is a table that we purchased when we honored Steinbach resident Vic Peters as his induction to the Manitoba Hall of Fame, the Curling Hall of Fame. Serving Seniors Transit is the grant that we get from the provincial government. We pass it along to serving seniors to run our handy transit, which is a very valuable service, and they are doing a great job of it. The Southeast, the $300 for the Southeast Rotary there is a table that we purchased for one of their fundraising events. The Stars Foundation is $1 per capita last census that we have agreed to fund the Stars. Steinbach Christian Schools, $500 was a table we bought for a fundraising event. Steinbach Community Foundation, I believe we spent $400 a year giving to the foundation. And the Steinbach Golf Club irrigation for $132,000 is money they've collected but receipt through the city of Steinbach. So there's no tax dollars collected as part of that. We just passed that through. So that is the, basically, that's also my summary of the grant report.
Thank you. Anything further? Anything closing?
No, sir.
Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9D, we've got the bylaw 2219 Acres Drive. This is canceling the debt authorization. This is third reading. Mr. Worthing, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, bylaw 2219 was a local improvement bylaw that City Council initially approved, anticipating that the city would require a borrowing to pay for a road construction project that was completed in 2022. In fact, all of the affected landowners, being the Steinbach Community Development Corporation, was prepared to provide cash payment for the construction costs. Therefore, no debt is required to be issued for that project. Recommendation is council give this bylaw third reading, and the borrowing authority of $3.1 million for this project may be canceled.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner?
Motion to approve.
Second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
This is a rare event where we actually get to cancel potential borrowings. So it's really nice to know that that project came in significantly under budget, and it's been a very good project so far. But this is just basically another housekeeping measure.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Penner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's nice to see that there's confidence in the SCDC that in the growth of Steinbach, that they knew that the lots that were going to be opened up with acres would be selling quickly, and they would be able to, without jeopardizing the financials of the SCDC, prepay for their portions. So it's a good testament to the growth of Steinbach and the wisdom on the board.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We are at, okay, council. Are there any questions of council at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to number 11, correspondence and petitions. 11A is Association of Manitoba Municipalities, re-elected municipal official education sessions. On page 49, council, how would you like to proceed? Take it as information. Okay, well, there's no other business. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Penner. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Next regular council meeting is Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 at 7:30.